We also want to take this moment to recognize our bronze sponsors today. That includes Freebie, which we heard from earlier, Renaissance Planning, Caltran, Kimley Horn, South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, Tri-Rail, Infinite Source Communications Group, AAA, GFT, Florida Transportation Builders Association, Uber Transit, FP&L, Brightline, Glideways, and those are our bronze sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause. Again, without our amazing sponsors, this event would not be possible. All right, you guys, we're going to dive into the last session of the day. Can you believe it? It's been a long day, but a good day, right? It's been a good day. A lot of good information. I know you're soaking it all in. All right, I'd like to welcome to the stage, well, first I'd like to tell you a little bit about this session that's coming up, moving into our final session of the day. As we all know, mobility in our region doesn't stop at county lines, and neither should our planning. This discussion unites executive leadership from Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach as well in their transportation planning organizations to explore the region's most pressing mobility initiatives. Our panelists will highlight ongoing projects and the shared challenges impacting Southeast Florida. They're also able to offer a regional perspective on how agencies are aligning priorities to deliver a more efficient, reliable, and future-ready transportation system. I would like to welcome to the stage, he's already here, Mr. David Dech, South Florida Regional Transportation Authority Executive Director. He oversees SFRTA, which operates Tri-Rail, as well as dispatching and maintenance of the South Florida Rail Corridor. Within 2 years of joining SFRTA, he's achieved the completion of Tri-Rail's expanding services into downtown Miami and refocused the agency's efforts to enhancing consumer experiences. In July of 2024, he helped incorporate Tri-Rail's first ever express train service in and out of Miami Central Station. He's an executive with over 30 years' experience in the rail industry and rail operations. But Mr. Dech began his career as a switchman and a railman. Yeah, pretty cool for CSX, and he is a fourth-generation railroader. He operates with the guiding principle that all people in an organization are entitled to be treated with dignity and respect, which has allowed him to enjoy great success within his experience. Let's welcome him to the stage, Mr. Dech.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it sounds so good when it comes from you. It sounds official. And thank you. I would like to first invite back to the stage. We've been very fortunate to have her up here a couple times. Aileen Bouclé, the Executive Director of the Miami-Dade Transportation Organization, who has been so instrumental in putting this all together today. It's been a fantastic success, I think. And thank you very much. As well as Greg Stuart, Executive Director of the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'll read your bio in a moment. And Valerie Neilson, Executive Director of the Palm Beach Metropolitan Planning Organization. So while we're walking, Greg Stuart, Mr. Stuart is the CEO of the Broward MPO, serving a 38-member board. He brings 35 years of public and private sector experience, is elected nationally to the board of directors as vice president of the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, serves on the National Association of Regional Councils Executive Directors Council, is chair emeritus of the Florida MPO Advisory Council, Staff Directors Advisory Committee, and chair of the MPOAC Freight and Passenger Rail Committee, appointed by the governor to serve on the Florida's Freight Advisory Committee, and is chair of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Transportation Management Agency. Mr. Stuart has worked in the public and private sector with the experience in management at municipal, county, and state level. He has secured millions of dollars in federal appropriations and grants for transportation projects, modified state rules to facilitate traffic mitigation, stimulated redevelopment efforts, and helped implement a dynamic water reuse project. Welcome, Greg. Thank you very much. And Valerie Neilson. Ms. Neilson is an urban planning professional passionate about multimodal transportation and creating a healthy and economically vibrant communities. As Palm Beach Metropolitan Planning Organization's executive director, she leads the agency's effort to plan, prioritize, and fund transportation projects that advance a safe, efficient, and connected transportation system in Palm Beach County. Ms. Neilson is a leadership Palm Beach County class of 2016 alumni, and are any other alumni in here? No, you the only one? Okay. And has served in various leadership roles, including the chair of the City of Green Acres Planning Commission and vice chair of the Miami-Dade Health and Built Environment Committee. She is fluent in English and Spanish and has over 17 years of experience in strategic planning and project management. Ms. Neilson holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies and a master's degree in urban and regional planning from Florida State University. She is also a certified professional planner with the American Planning Association Institute of Certified Planners. Welcome very much. Thank you, Valerie. So we're going to go through a brief PowerPoint presentation here that kind of tells a little bit of a story. So, and I think you're going to start us off, Aileen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know that you can see the slides from where you're sitting, so I'm going to go up to the podium. So we're going to hit the first slide. Hello again, and thank all of you, each of you, for hanging around and being here for the last panel of the day. I'm very excited to be here with my colleagues across the region. We have a great presentation for you and talk about what are we doing regionally. Not just Miami-Dade County, but what are we doing regionally. So thank you, Greg and Valerie and Dave, my counterparts, for being here, for your commitment, your professionalism, and let's tell our story. So the Southeast Florida Regional Transportation Plan 2050. Let's jump to the next slide. As you can see, together, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, we collectively are known as Southeast Florida. We are one of the largest regions in the nation by population. Certainly in the state of Florida, we're almost at 6 million. So being one of the top most populous regions in the nation carries some weight. And that's one of the reasons why we so effectively collaborate, and we're really committed to our regional collaboration. Because when we join together as one of the largest regions, not just in the state of Florida, but in the nation, when we're unified, we can go a lot further. And we know this, and that's why we are up here today to talk about what we do. Next slide. Next slide. Regional collaboration. All right, so how many of you know that there is a regional MPO that's operating right here in your region? All right, some of you know. So you have Palm Beach MPO, Broward MPO, and Miami-Dade TPO. But we have a regional MPO, the Southeast Florida Transportation Council. This is a regional MPO body that was formed by voluntary memorandum of understanding, which means that all three MPOs came together and signed an agreement along with FDOT, and FDOT District 4, District 6 are a part of this collaborative. So we voluntarily entered into this arrangement because of a census from 2010 that clearly outlined and showed the regional nature of our travel patterns. So together, we manage this regional MPO, and we rotate responsibilities between the three MPOs. So our goal is to focus on regional transportation needs and investments, and we do a lot of very interesting things with our collaboration. Next. What do we do? So in addition to voluntarily entering into an MOU and creating this organization, SFTEC, we all contribute funding from our own program. So Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade put money in the pot together, along with District 4 and District 6, to conduct regional activities, primarily regional documents. We are not required to do this, but this is something that we're committed to doing because it's important to the region. So what do we collectively fund and put together? We collectively fund and put together a regional transportation plan. And I'm very pleased to say that we've just adopted the 2050 regional transportation plan, and I'll touch on that in a minute, but Greg's going to take a deep dive on that in a few minutes as well. So not only do we produce regional documents, we have regional committees and subcommittees. We have a modeling subcommittee. We rotate these responsibilities. Right now, Miami-Dade TPO is leading the administration of SFTEC. I am almost done with my 5-year administration of SFTech, and I'm going to be rotating it next to Palm Beach, and then it'll be back to Broward. So 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. We're constantly managing this. So in addition to our modeling subcommittee, we develop a regional model. Again, Miami-Dade took on the leadership role in this round, and it'll be rotated next to Palm Beach. We have our Transportation System and Management Operations Subcommittee, and most importantly, a public participation subcommittee. We do this is compiled of technical staff from Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. I'd like to recognize my team for their leadership role, as well as Palm Beach and Broward for their leadership role in putting your staff together, all together collectively, to sit down and discuss these technical issues from a regional perspective. Next slide. So what does that do? That brings us to the adoption every 5 years of a new regional transportation plan. So we've just adopted the regional transportation plan, and while Greg is going to get a little bit in the nuts and bolts of it, I will tell you what's different about the 2050 regional plan that was just adopted. We were able to recognize a little bit more of emerging technologies and needs in our region and try to incorporate a little bit more visionary, innovative future opportunities that we can bring to the region collectively. In the next slide, you can go on and see our interactive web-based report. So if you want to see what's in the regional transportation plan, please go to this website and take a look. Next slide. We do other things regionally. We come together and we form regional delegations to go and learn about best practices. Right now, we are committed, the 3 counties, to reversing the trend on pedestrian and bicycle fatalities and injuries, and we are investing, the 3 of us, heavily in trying to bring the best practices and implement them here in South Florida. This was a Dutch embassy cycling exchange with all 3 counties. As you can see, all 3 MPOs being represented. Next. We also combine and do our Safe Roads, Safe Street Summits. We rotate them every year. It was started by Broward. When I started almost 10 years ago and saw the great job that Greg and his team were doing, I picked up the phone and I told Greg, hey, Greg, can we make this a regional effort? And Greg did not hesitate. So he expanded what he was doing in Broward and opened it up to the region. Palm Beach joined, and now we rotate. So we do this because we want to cover the entire region, and we're really committed to safety. So this is how we collaborate and work together. I'm just beginning to tell the story, but I'm excited that Greg is going to step in next and take over. Thank you.
Technically challenged. Good afternoon, everybody. And you know what? Thank you for staying here. That is real commitment to where we are. Aileen, great job. The folks from Miami-Dade, you should be very proud of the leadership that Aileen and her board provide you. Valerie, thank you for coming down too. I apologize for the way I look, but you know what? I thought I needed to be here. And on my way here this morning to catch Brightline to come in, I learned about infrastructure we don't take in consideration, and that's called shelters. So it started to rain in Fort Lauderdale, and I don't know where and why, but it did. And I was halfway to the Brightline station, and I'm looking around at the buildings that had just been built, and none of them had an arcade. And the bus shelters aren't designed to get out of the rain or the sun. So we're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Luckily, I didn't want to alarm Aileen, and I'm like, Valerie, just let her know I'm going to be late. And I had to figure out a suit. I've been traveling a lot the last couple of months for all of us. And it's been really a great learning experience on where we are and what we're doing. Can I go ahead and slide one up, please? This is what Aileen was talking about. In and of itself, each MPO is huge. We're not talking about small MPOs. We're not talking about little fringes. We're not talking about, oh, in Austin, there's this little county that has, 100,000 people. We're talking about a lot of people moving through a very narrow passage along the coast. It's almost like the port director was talking about earlier, and Jimmy brought it up. It's like you have this really strange dynamic here. that we have a very long and linear community. Seattle kind of has something similar, but it's not even the same either. So if you look at Palm Beach, and this is a phenomenal number anywhere in the world, it's $6.1 billion over the next 25 years. Palm Beach is going to make investments in Palm Beach, and we'll talk about them in a few minutes. We're putting in $7.62 billion. I want to caveat that because I think Miami-Dade did as well. That doesn't include our full penny sales tax. That's our federal commitment to this community. And this is what we're putting in. And that's a big number. And as we move forward together, that number needs to match what Miami-Dade is doing. You're going to see that in a minute. But that is where we all come together and have that conversation. 16 years ago, when I got my job, what was his name? The MPO director at the time. No, Palm Beach, or Miami-Dade. Jose Luis. I love Jose Luis. He was such a nice guy. And Jose, I'm like looking at my plan, I'm looking at the Miami-Dade plan, and I'm like, there's this 2-lane road that intersects a 4-lane road that comes in. Broward was doing 4 lanes into Miami-Dade, Miami-Dade didn't have the 4-lane. And I'm just like, hey, why don't we work on this together? And that was actually that simple conversation of figuring out how you work together to actually deliver the product that the people need. Folks that live in Miramar, they work in Miami-Dade. People that live in Miami-Dade work up in Miramar, the FBI agents especially. So we have like a whole bunch of people that are moving across the border, and we can't have roads that don't match. The conversations we have up in Tallahassee, Aileen and I both, and Valerie, it's like, hey, they're like, well, how are you coordinating? It's through this process we coordinate. This isn't a happenstance. This is actually not a bureaucratic exercise, although it did start that way. This was actually trying to make sure we are delivering federal dollars in an efficient way to the public. Next slide, please. All right, here you go, some numbers. And I want you to think about this. Highway and roadway and freight, $16.8 billion. Is the port director still here? Is she still? No. How about Jimmy Morales? Is he still around? No. Okay. Well, good for him. That number is a big number. And they're doing we're going to do a talk show in a few minutes too with Javi. So if you look at that number and you recognize how much that is, imagine if your airport had that type of money. Imagine if your seaport had that type of money. And it's just one thing that we're investing in highway, roadway, and freight. I mean, one of the things as a planner when I started my career is planners are planners. We like to plan, but we have no money. Coming to an MPO was the best experience ever because there's actually money tied to the delivery of projects. Stacy Miller, I don't know if you're still here, but Stacy taught me all about the DOT work program. And that work program and how the money flows through that work program was so vital in delivering projects in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, and actually has made your life better. And yeah, there are days our traffic systems crash and things shouldn't be where they are, but that number is improving and getting better. Next one on transit. And Miami-Dade has been phenomenal. I grew up down here. When Reagan came down and opened Metro Rail, I was there. One of my takeaways from that experience as a child, younger child, was he mentioned that you could have bought everyone a limousine for the ridership of Metro Rail. He was right at the time. Hell no, you wouldn't want to do that. It was an amazing federal gift to Miami-Dade and made a huge difference in the way the community has grown. And there were battles of where stations would go and all the rest of it. That's just part of our maturity. But the investment that we have together are 76 projects. I'm going to go into that a little bit further soon. And then bike ped. Hey, you know what? We're going to put in a bicycle lane. We're going to put in a sidewalk. What does this mean? I want to leave this statistic in your head. And I don't know what Miami-Dade's is, so I apologize. But 3 people are either killed or seriously injured in Broward County a day. A day. How much money does that cost you? How much money does that cost each county? How much money does that cost the city? How much does that cost our insurances? What are we thinking when we are actually looking at a roadway? We can't just say, oh, we just need to move the car faster. We need to be strategic and make sure there's safety. That's a big number. Multiply it. Figure it out by 352. I mean, it's nuts. Then you go over to other projects, and there's 14 projects at $88 million. And those other projects, and I'm going to hopefully get a question from Dave, those other projects, people don't even realize we're doing them, but we are. And we never take credit for it. We don't. We actually go out and move things for your betterment in ways that change the dynamic of our community. Next slide. The Northeast Corridor. I worked as a planning director in West Palm Beach in 1997, something like that. And we had talked about this corridor back then. My friend Joe Yesbeck had actually moved forward with a tri-rail project to move forward with commuting to take off some traffic through maintenance of traffic operations because we were adding some lanes to I-95. That is a huge project, and it used to operate as passenger rail along with freight. Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach have committed resources to make this into a reality. While we may have taken a pause, we may have to take a little bit of pause, just to understand that we are all united in trying to make this move forward is an important factor. Next slide, please. So, Broward, not to be outdone, and, it's just like, it's funny. We have this bus rapid transit system we're doing on Oakland Park Boulevard. Fascinating project because our friends over at the DOT don't want to lose a lane. I don't really want to lose a lane. Traffic backs up all over the place. It's very difficult. You move out to University Drive to the west. The right-of-way gets larger. You can do a lot more work. This project is going to be completely funded by the sales tax. We're not going to go back up to the federal government. We're not going to do well there. This next 3 years, forget it. We're not getting money. So we need to figure out ways to deliver projects that we can, and this is not a political statement, please do not take that because I voted for Reagan. This is a statement of fact. They're just not there doing what they want. This is not what they want to spend the money on, and that's okay. The public needs to spend the money. I had a transit director that once told me 16 years ago, I'm like, why don't we do all these corridors and plans and we'll put everything together for you and we can wrap them all up. And many of your consultants in here, you got work out of this. Kind of like the SMART plan did in Miami-Dade. It was, okay, well, what do we do in Broward? And now Valerie is doing it in Palm Beach. You need to lay the groundwork. But my transit director said to me, I don't have any money to do this. And like an idiot, I'm kind of stupid. And I'm like, oh, you need money, let's find you money. I really meant that in that way. And we found him money. We're generating $740 million a year in that surtax. And we haven't spent $2.5 billion of it yet. It's just sitting in a bank. And I don't know if any of my friends are here from Broward County or not, but this is inside gossip. What's it called? Chismoso? But this is just a fact of life. But it's important to get all the plans put in place, all the things that are going to be necessary. Our MPOs work together and separately to make this reality. Next slide, please. Okeechobee Boulevard. When I went to work for Nancy Graham, who was the mayor of West Palm Beach 1,000 years ago, she was the first strong mayor of that city. She said, we need to do something about Okeechobee. And so in my resume, we talk about changing state laws. Myself and this guy actually developed this thing called Transportation Concurrency Exemption Areas. So the city of West Palm Beach benefited from that. The county engineer was like, oh, sure, that's fine, but we want you to build so many units a year. And I looked at him, I'm like, hey, this is great. How many? And he goes, you need to build 200. And I'm like, no, let's go to 1,000. And we did it. He agreed, thinking we were nuts. Maybe I was. But, in the bigger picture, Valerie is now going down these rabbit holes now to set up the processes necessary so that Palm Beach County can deliver the quality of life and economic development standards that are going to be necessary to handle the growth we're having here in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Because it affects all of us. Broward's going to grow a little less because we don't have available land. Miami-Dade and Palm Beach are blessed with acres and acres of undeveloped area. Blessed. That said, as Valerie moves forward with this particular project and others, we need to support her and make sure that she gets the necessary help to have this go forward. And then eventually, we're going to have to deal with Tri-Rail. So we're going to get there. I promise you, Dave. I may be retired, but it'll still happen. What's the last slide, please? Challenges and opportunities. Please welcome to the microphone, Mindfest fan, Valerie Neilson.
All right, thanks, Greg. So thanks again, Aileen, Greg, Dave, everyone who's made this event possible. This has been awesome today, and thank you for staying for this last panel. So we have a lot going on in our region. We are 3 counties, but 1 traveling public, and as Aileen said, and Greg, we're so excited that we've just finished this 2050 regional transportation plan, setting the vision, setting the roadmap of where we're headed, and that's what directs the federal funding and the state funding coming here. Next slide. So we do have some challenges and also opportunities, but some of the challenges we have is that this is a popular place to be, and we are now over 6 million people, and we're headed to be over 7 million people in the next 25 years. That's a lot of people, another 1 million people coming to this tri-county area. And we have a lot of cost, right? So on average, between Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, it's between 60 and 70% of household income spent on housing and transportation, when no more than 45% is considered affordable. So think about it. 60% of people's household income, or up to 70 here in Miami, being spent on housing and transportation. How can we help with that? How can we make that better? So, and it comes to land use. A lot of people are spending a lot of time traveling, and they all have to have a car, and they have to have, if they're able to, and they have to have car insurance and gas and tolls and all of these costs in addition to having expensive housing. So our land use, we have to think about how can we make that more efficient, more effective, but we are also constrained. As you know, we have the Atlantic Ocean, we have the Everglades, we have constraints on how we can grow to the sides. It's more people and less space. So we have to think about how do we use this asset, land, more effectively. And as Greg mentioned, safety, go back, sorry. To the last slide. So safety. Florida is consistently ranked as the most dangerous state for pedestrians and bicyclists. Most recently, we moved to number 2, not because we got better for pedestrian safety, but because New Mexico got worse. But on average, I believe it's around 48 or 49 people every single day in the state of Florida are seriously injured to the point of being incapacitated. And around 8 or 9 people die every single day on our roads. We're not just talking about pedestrian bicycles, we're talking about people on our roads, people driving, walking, biking, but on our roadway system. That's a lot of lives lost and lives impacted, not just those people, but all of their family, their network, and as Greg mentioned, all the costs associated with that, the trauma, all these things that affect quality of life. So it's a major issue. And then funding, right? So we're all talking about transit. We're talking about these plans that we have on the Tri-County area connecting this one traveling public, but we need money for that. And that's a challenge because some of the funding pots, we need federal funds, we need discretionary grants, we need state funding, we need pilot programs, we need public-private partnerships, we need money to make these things happen. So that's a challenge. Next. But we do have some opportunities ahead. We've made huge strides in our region, connecting. We all are working really strong with all our communities, with DOT, enhancing and connecting our walking and biking facilities. They say that around 50% of trips are between 1 and 3 miles. People that are just driving to drop their kids off at school, they're going to the post office, they're going to, they're going to Publix, whatever they're doing, they're just creating traffic and they're driving around. I mean, I live near a school and it's just madness. There's no cars around, but when it's around drop-off pickup time. It's crazy. So, what if some of those trips, if it's 50% of trips, what if some of those trips were people could walk or bike and feel safe and comfortable doing that? If they could take some sort of transit or micromobility on-demand circulator, a lot of that has made huge improvements, advancements in the last decade here in our region. Probably some of you have taken a circuit, a freebie, on-demand circulator, autonomous vehicle. So we are seeing a lot of things moving forward, which is really exciting. And as MPOs, we're prioritizing safer bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Aileen showed a picture of the bike immersion program with the Dutch Cycling Embassy. That was amazing. That talk about travel in time, going into the future and seeing how it's all working seamlessly together. Amazing seeing that. And when you just plan for cars, you're only talking about a certain percentage of the population. Not everyone can drive. Some people are too young, they're too old, they don't have the physical ability to drive, and maybe they don't have the money to drive because having a car is very expensive. So we got to think about all of the users, and by thinking about all the users, we make it better for everyone, because by providing options, that means that the car is optional. Maybe you have a one-car household, but the other people are like, I'm going to take the train. I took transit here with our staff today, and it was awesome. It was stress-free and amazing. So we're trying to look for options, providing options, and really it's a geometry issue. So when you think about cars take up a lot of space, and a lot of times it's one person, two people in there, but that's a lot of space in the road. So having people take transit or walk or bike, that's more people that you can move more efficiently. So looking at how to increase transit funding, Greg talked about talking at a national level, at a state level, and Aileen, trying to fight for this and really talk about how important this is. It's important to invest in transit because it's really about quality of life. Transportation doesn't sound that exciting a lot of times for people. We have governing boards with elected officials, and sometimes elected officials are like, I got put on this board, transportation. They just think of people complaining about traffic and congestion, but no, transportation is at the heart of it all. If you care about schools, well, how are the kids going to get to school? If you care about health care, how are you moving these people around? How are you accessing economic development, quality of life? It's all connected to transportation. So it's very important, and so we need transit is where we're headed. We have to invest in moving masses. The transit keeps growing and growing. People keep riding, and ridership keeps, hitting records for Tri-Rail, for Brightline. So people want it. People want these options. They want them to be convenient and efficient. So we need to increase transit funding. Maybe it's getting creative. Public-private partnerships, having those matching funds for discretionary grants, being ready to go. Leveraging technology. Technology is moving so quickly. We have to keep, Aileen mentioned the regional plan, talking about emerging technologies, smarter signals. It's really a mix of all these solutions. And again, talking about that land use and transportation connection. How can we, Florida, a lot of the Sun Belt states in the southern part of the United States were built around the car, thinking, okay, we got to get everybody to downtown in their car and then back to their house and to their garage and to sit on, on the couch or whatever, kind of like the Simpsons, right, lifestyle. But we're running out of space. We can't keep in that mode of planning and sprawling and continuing to sprawl and have everybody drive really far away. If you can invest in having more housing near transportation, transit-oriented communities, transit-oriented development, then people can spend less time driving and more time enjoying their family, enjoying their friends, enjoying being outside, and saving money and time. So advancing that through policies, through plans, and our region's doing a great job with that. Miami's doing great things, so is Broward, and we're working on those things too. So all of these are opportunities that we can move forward with. Next. This is just a couple examples, or really one of each county, but the underline has been amazing. I know we heard from Meg earlier, but an amazing transformation over the last decade. This was a path that really kind of people had turned their back on it. It was dark, you weren't really sure if you wanted to be there, and now they're nearing 4 of the 10 miles of being completed, completely makeover, an activated space, a place you feel safe, a place that you want to go and walk and bike, and she was talking about the millions of users that use it every day, so just transforming that and really making an asset has been a huge success at the Underline. In Broward, they have a Hollywood Mobility Hub, amazing at the crossroads of Hollywood Boulevard and State Road 7, a hub for transit, for walking and biking. These are the kinds of things that we need to see more of in our region. And then in our county, the picture on the bottom, Banyan Boulevard, this is a transformation that the city of West Palm Beach did in downtown. They took this road that was really just car-oriented, had some narrow sidewalks, didn't have any bike facilities. They transformed it. I think Gwen's still in the room. She was part of this project, Gwen Deng, when she's at the city. But this project here, that crosswalk, that mid-block crosswalk, you see a bunch of people would run across this every day, and there was tons of cars coming in. It was really not safe. And this is a great project too because it has basically kind of like a shared use path, but like a cycle track with pedestrians on the wide paths, so people can get off Tri-Rail or Palm-Tran, our intermodal hub that we have downtown, and really bike into the heart of downtown and to where there's housing, and our downtown's really booming. So these are the kinds of things, those first last mile connections, those options for people to get around. Next. So, this is my last slide, but we really need to be thinking about the future. We need to be ready for the future. We need to think about technology. How can that help? Technology is not going to fix everything, but how can we integrate that and keep up with the times to make things move more efficiently, smarter? How can we look at transit and mobility options, those first last mile connections, that 1 to 3 mile trip, that inter-county, regional, longer trips of transit? They need to be reliable, they need to be efficient, they need to be comfortable and safe. We also need to think about resiliency. We're working on, what about sea level rise and storms, and how can we make sure our infrastructure is ready for that? How can we, in our county, we're with FDOT, we're funding a lot of, instead of having electrical wires or signals that are hanging, making mast arms, making them more resilient. Again, financing, funding, looking at different options, and then land use. I mentioned that. So how do we make the most of the land that we have, this asset? How can we optimize land use, housing, and transportation with the land use we have through policies, through redevelopment, providing more housing, more affordable options, and better quality of life. Next slide. So the last slide is thank you. The point we want to make is that we are federally mandated agencies. We plan and prioritize state and federal funds for the urban area, and looking at this region as a whole, we really are one traveling public. I personally realized that firsthand about 13 years ago, living in Palm Beach County. I took a job in downtown Miami, and I had to drive for the first couple months before I was able to move here. And it was madness. Every day I would get on the turnpike, the same cars would be next to me every single day. When I'd come down to work here, 2/3 of my office lived not in Miami-Dade, they lived in Broward and Palm Beach. I realized we really are one traveling public, and we need to think about the future. So check out the 2050 plan, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dave for some Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a couple questions here. Hello? I've never needed a microphone before. They usually don't give me one. Greg, let me start with you. So, with more than 500 projects in the Regional Transportation Plan, how do you tell the story of the RTP and describe the meaningful outcomes for the public?
Very slowly. Actually, really what you do is find out what's important. We actually survey our residents constantly, and even non-residents. They're down here in Miami-Dade, they're up in Palm Beach, and we ask them what's important to you, what are you looking for, where are things going? And then they ask about the projects that we've been working on, and why hasn't this actually happened yet? And it's a hard conversation to have. So is having 38 elected officials. So, when you have the storytelling that we have to do, and it is storytelling that Valerie and I and Aileen have to do, there's some misunderstandings a lot of times. It's like, why can't I get this done now? That's not how things work. One of my favorite stories about one of my board members that will tie into another question is he wanted something done right away. And he had been on the MPO, had no term limits, he had been on the MPO for a decade. And then I showed up, and he goes, I want you to do this. And I'm like, great, I need 10 years. And we're gonna have that conversation in a bit. But you actually have to be very honest with him. You're not gonna deliver it tomorrow. It's not gonna happen that way. I talked to a lot of economic development folks I want a sidewalk in front of Citrix. I want a sidewalk in front of Microsoft Latin America's headquarters by us. I want this, I want that. Well, that's great. Memorial Healthcare Systems, which is actually building a hospital at that one place that Valerie showed on Hollywoods in 441. I had been in conversations with them 10 years. They bought that defunct mall, and they're now using geobonds to actually buy and build a facility there. But we knew it was coming. So some things show up a little earlier, some things show up a little later, but ultimately, Aileen and I have really hard jobs to explain to our electeds, and so does Valerie, because they're expecting more out of us, and we want to provide them more. But the legislature is also there saying, well, deliver this now. Well, provide the money. It's going to be really fun to see how we play out.
Valerie, what challenges and opportunities do you see for the region when it comes to land use and transportation?
So I talked a little bit about that. Again, we're really constrained with by the ocean, by environmental constraints. So more people coming here, safety, congestion. We got to figure out how we're going to move all these people in a safe, efficient, and connected way. So that's a challenge. And sometimes people also change is hard. So they're like, we don't want more people moving here, and they're one of the people that just moved here. So we have to think about everybody. So getting that buy-in, getting people to see the big picture and see how it will help them. But also those opportunities of working with our local municipalities, with our public and private partners, with the developers, and figuring out how can we set the stage wherever you are at. If you're a city, how can you set the policies in place so that you welcome that redevelopment that's more transit oriented, so that you don't have a giant parking lot in the front and the Publix in the back, that you can actually make this a more walkable and connected environment. So it's looking at policies, it's looking at priorities, it's working with all these partners to move this forward.
No, and everybody wants to move to paradise and close the door behind them, like no more, right? Aileen, how did the regional coordination influence the development of the 2015 RTP in aligning the long-range transportation investments across the region?
That's a great question, because in addition to the regional transportation plan, each of us had to produce our own long-range transportation plan, the 2050 long-range transportation plan. That is a core federal requirement of MPOs, TPOs. So we drew a lot from our individual efforts across the region. We drew a lot of data from Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, and we worked through a regional transportation model to come together to our top regional priorities. And as I said earlier, we have formed, by voluntary MOU, a regional MPO called SFTEC. And we bring this data to our regional council, which is one member from each board. So we have a 3-member governing board, and they will vote to adopt.
Heaven.
Yeah. A 3-member governing board where we bring the data that we have amassed across the region individually into a regional model, and that's how we prioritize our projects from a regional perspective.
All right, Greg.
Sir.
There's a little something we touched on it a little bit earlier, but tell me a little bit about this fair interoperability project that tied all 4 transit operators to one link application.
So, this board chair that I had, Mayor Kaplan, who now lives in New Hampshire. He left Lauderhill. They put in term limits. When I got to the board, he goes, I want a fare card like you can use in Washington, D.C., and I should be able to go from Broward County Transit to Metro Rail to Metro Bus to Metro Mover to BCT to Palmtran and our good friends at SFRTA, Tri-Rail. And I kind of looked at him and I'm like, I know they do it, and I've seen it, and I've used it, but how are we going to do this? And then on the technology side Aileen talked about, that was a big lift, much bigger than I realized. Stupid Greg. In the reality is everybody got bogged down in, especially Broward County, on a single fare. Like what you can charge whatever you want. Whatever your fare is, it's your fare. It just adds on the other person's fare. No, we don't want to have a regional fare. We don't want this. We don't want that. They would lose themselves in details that weren't necessary, but they thought it was important. So I honestly, and I thank FDOT, we put money off to the side. We moved money, because this was a Broward thing. It really benefited Broward the most. It's going to benefit Miami-Dade and Palm Beach, but it really benefited us because we go into both communities. And we're taking the train, we're taking the buses, we're taking Metro Rail, and I want my people to be able to go back and forth in a way that is very useful. Now, there was a conversation earlier today about freebie, and we're going to add that because actually Dave and his group helped deal with the project. Finally. We bought all these heads for BCT, and Miami-Dade put in a whole bunch of new heads on their buses so you could tap and do what you needed to do. But it was ultimately Dave and his group that actually said, okay, well, how can I make this work between all the transit agencies? Because they all get together and split the fare recoveries. Well, not fare recoveries, the money from Washington, D.C. And so it was a really wonderful experience. And I thank Dave very much. He didn't spend all the money. So I'm on the phone as we speak, not this second, but earlier today, with FTA to program that so I can finish the spend, because they don't want the money back. They're like, just go and do this. And to me, that's where the MPOs go from planning to finding your implementation partners and get them put together. And, we didn't do the programming. We didn't do any of that. That was actually done over at SFRTA, Broward County Transit. I got really fortunate. We have a new director over there. She's very progressive. She came out of Philadelphia at SEPTA. She worked at what's it called? Not WashCog. WMATA, thank you. And so she was familiar with these products. And I didn't have anybody else there. No, we had Alice Bravo here. She was great. She's like, oh, I know what we're doing. And then you had, what was his name? He passed away. Clifton. We had people that were supportive and understood what we were trying to accomplish and wanted to, but it just took time. And time is a valuable resource. And as somebody that is less than 2 years out of retirement, I can really tell you that I'm grateful that this has happened for our region. And whether one service line continues or another, this is all interplaceable. You can put one name on it, another name on it, it doesn't really matter. Because your kids are going to grow up in a place where they can go out the front door, maybe take a freebie, maybe take a Uber, maybe take something else, and get from one process to another. And that to me is so valuable for what we're trying to do and create the safety that's necessary for this region. And I'm really excited for the future that both Valerie and Aileen have, and Dave, we'll see. Because it's like really neat. My mom used to call me that too. But the bigger picture is we have such great potential, and don't let the today of negativity slow down the progress of tomorrow. And that one I want to leave with y'all.
And it's so flow go, right?
So flow go, 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 go.
That's right. Eileen, what planning tools or collaborative approaches did the RTP team use during the development of the plan to build a consensus among the TPO MPOs? That's a lot of those.
Sure. I was going to ask Valerie, did we have that last slide? 3 counties, 1 traveling public, yeah. So what we did interactive, we had an interactive web-based website, really, that we were all able to collaborate at a technical level, District 4, District 6, the 3 of us. I want to give a shout out to the Southeast Florida Regional, our South Florida Regional Planning Council and Treasure Coast Council, who also participated and assisted with our long-range plan. So with this interactive web-based application, we were able to enter in data collectively and build and also through our subcommittees, we were able to technically meet and formulate the methodology and basis for the next round of our SERPM update, which we completed, 9.0. So these are the tools that we use collectively, regionally, in order to come up with our regional transportation plan.
And that leads me to my favorite question, Valerie. How has rail changed how people get around South Florida?
I mean, just even this last 10 years, I think that it's really transformed. More and more people are taking Tri-Rail. I was just talking with our district secretary, who's still here, Secretary Braun. He took, Tri-Rail, the express train. He was saying it was packed on his way down. More and more people are taking transit because it's so smooth and convenient, right? It's because they don't want to deal with the tolls, the traffic, and the congestion, all of that. And with Brightline that came in too, that's been a game changer. We've had so much development around our downtown and really in all the stations. Everybody wants a station. So it's been a game changer. I think people have been reintroduced to transit, and now they take their friends, they take their family, they take it for work, they take it for fun. It's people want more. In our county, our county has kicked off a countywide transportation master plan. In Miami and Broward, they have a surtax for transportation that can help with transit operations maintenance. Palm Beach County does not, but the county is working on a countywide transportation master plan. And so far, it's only been going on for a couple of months, but the surveys, it was in the Palm Beach Post, the surveys say the number one thing people want more of is more rail, more transit rail. They want east-west. The picture we saw earlier of Okeechobee east-west, that's a vision of premium transit because we have sprawled west, but there's only one way in and out. And people are like, you got to solve this. We can't. There's an environmental preserve. We can't cut through it. This is the way in and out, and it's just more people on the same road, and our roads are built out. So we can't make them any wider without taking people's homes, and they're unsafe. So we have to start using that space more efficiently. And I think the appetite's there. People have ride it, and they want more.
Fantastic. So I wish the students were still here to have heard some of these things. And so a couple lessons that we've learned out of this, I hope everybody's rail, more rail. Everybody wants more rail. But also for me personally, if you're ever asked, anybody in the room, if you're ever asked to be part of a panel, to moderate or be part of it, always agree to be on a panel with expert planners, because then you'll never have to do any work. Like they plan this out to like the nth degree, and it's been perfect. And thank you very much for allowing me to be part of it. And let me hear it for the three of these. They're fantastic partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.